Good evening, YouTube, BookTube. This is Johnny. Time to make a video. Now, I'm not opening up a can of beer. This is Ice Mountain Sparkling Natural Spring Water. Yeah, I'm not a beer drinker. I do drink some wine, but so I thought I'd make a video. I made a video the other night saying that I would show in another video the books that I found to be interesting reads throughout the year 2019. We are now in January the 6th, 2020 here in West Michigan. It is a Monday night. It is 7:58. My wife just left to go to work. My wife is a rapid response nurse at a hospital just a couple blocks down from where we live. She's been a nurse for 45 years. She's retiring this coming June, Lord willing. She's part-time now. Anyway, she left, and so I'm here by myself. House is quiet. I just did the dinner dishes, and I thought I'd make this video. So like I said, it's a Monday night. It is January the 6th, and these, I gathered these books. I went through the list every month of the year 2019. I went through January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, and I went through there, and the ones that stand out in my mind to be, now I'm not saying these are my favorite books or these are the top books. These are the books that I had a pleasurable reading experience, that I enjoyed reading them. Now also I want to qualify, I did not finish the majority of these books. I read them, but I didn't read them from beginning to end. Some I did, but most I didn't. As I repeatedly said in these videos, I enjoy the activity of reading. I don't have to read a book from cover to cover. I don't have to finish a book. I can read it for a couple months, a couple weeks, a couple days, and then I go on to something else. But these are the books that now some of these books I read for 3 months, repeatedly, and some I plan to revisit in the near future or in the future. So anyway, as far as my diary today, January 2020, I ended on page 18. I've written 18 pages in my January 2020 diary for this year. I'm not going to talk about what I've been reading over the weekend, or I did go to thrift stores after the book nook today and I got some books. I got a book in the mail. I'll show those in a future video. But I'm just going to, these are the books for 2019 that I enjoyed reading, that stand out from all the list. First, now there's no particular order from I'm just going to show the books. The one that stood out is another Roadside Attraction by Tom Robbins. Once again, I read the majority of this. I didn't read the last maybe 10 pages of this, but I really enjoyed it. I found it an enjoyable read. It wasn't what I expected, but yeah, I recommend it. Another Roadside Attraction. I've collected all of Tom Robbins. It was kind of interesting. Several years ago when I started going to thrift stores, I skipped over Tom Robbins. I thought, oh, he's just kind of fluff. But when I read this, I was surprised how literary it is. It's just not fluff. It's really well written. And I think it was his first novel. He wrote all kinds of books. Anyway, Tom Robbins, Another Side of Attraction. Then I really enjoyed reading. Now, I didn't read all of this. Is Clarice Lispector, Complete Stories. I read half of this, and I really enjoyed reading her stories, and I do plan to read some more of them in the future, but I really enjoyed reading this. And then I've shown you this, and I finished this whole thing. I read this last year, The Invented Part by Rodrigo Fresan, translated from the Spanish by Will Vanderhyden. Now I'm reading this. This is a trilogy. I'm reading the second volume in this trilogy, which is the dream part. I'm still reading that. It's over in my to be read pile. But I've been reading. I finished this. It was probably one of the best things I read last year. And then I recommend this book. Was an interesting read. 9th Street Women. Lee Krasher, Elaine de Kooning, Grace Hartigan, Joan Mitchell, and Ellen Frankenthaler, 5 Painters and Movement That Changed Modern Art by Mary Gabriel. Now, I only read 200 pages of this, which is around 770, but I do plan to get back into this someday. But I really enjoyed what I read, and I was thinking, when I gathered all these books this evening, I thought I should keep these out and make it my to be read pile for the year 2020, since I so much enjoyed reading these that I should get back into them. And then I mentioned this book, which was my favorite books of 2019, Gabriel and Cain by Gregor von Razor. This is translated from the German by David Dahlmeyer, Jacob, I can't pronounce their names, but you can see it. I really enjoyed reading this, and I read almost 400 pages of this, and I keep it on my to be read pile. I haven't taken it down the lower level. I really enjoyed reading this. I enjoyed reading this Christian book, Fire Within, St. Teresa of Avila, St. John of the Cross, and the Gospel on Prayer by Thomas Dubray. I keep this by my desk in my main study. I read it all. I continue to read it and going in and out of it. But it's one of my things I really enjoyed reading last year. And then, as far as a novel, I read most of The Merry Men by Carolyn Chute. I found a hardback of this, which I can't find this evening, but I read this paperback. It's about 675 pages, and I read about 480 pages. I really enjoyed reading this. Highly recommend it. It's a great novel. And then we've all seen Ducks Newburyport. I read about 630 pages. This is on my to be read pile, but I really enjoyed reading this. I read it for 3 months, and then I got out of it, but I do plan to get back into it 2020. And then I read The Accursed, a novel by Joyce Carol Oates. Once again, I didn't finish it. I read almost half of it. It's like 625 pages. But I really enjoyed reading this, and it was really an interesting read, kind of surrealistic, kind of gothic, kind of horror. But I really recommend it, The Accursed. And then I read this novel. I finished this novel, or most of it, Going Native by Stephen Wright. This novel really impressed me as being a really highly structured, very interesting novel, very thought-provoking. I really highly recommend it. It's one of the best constructed novels I've come across in years going native. And then I read this for several months, The Pleasures of the Imagination, English Culture in the 18th Century by John Brewer. I really should get back into this. I read, how many pages? 177. It's like almost 630 pages. But I really enjoyed reading this, and I want to get back into it someday. But you know, like I said, it was a pleasurable reading experience. All these books I really enjoyed reading. I don't know why I didn't continue to read them, because I think there's a reason why, is I come across so many interesting books to read. And plus I read in the mornings, the Bible and Christian books. And I read secular books in the afternoons, but I'm kind of sluggish, and in the evenings. So I'm kind of a slow reader, and I get a lot of books and things get put aside. And then I read these two books, Memoirs of a Revolutionary by Victor Serge, and Notebooks 1936 to 1947. I keep these on my to-be-read pile. I still read them off and on, but I think he's a great writer, Victor Serge. I highly recommend him, especially if you're into European history. Just incredible writing. And then I read this a lot last year, the William Gass Reader. I read half of this, and I continue to read it. It's like an anthology or selection of his writings. Essays, short stories, reviews. It's just incredible. William H. Gass is one of my favorite writers, and I highly recommend this book. And then I read Romans 1 through 8. This is the Reformation commentary on Scripture. I still read this. It's on my. I read it when I'm into Romans, and so I highly recommend this. And the book that I really, kind of in a way, is the book that I really highly recommend for all those who are students of the Bible, is this book, Biblical Theology of the New Testament by Peter Schleiermacher. This is an incredible work. I think every serious Christian should have this book. It is so good. I was really highly impressed by it. It's not hard to read. That's one thing I was kind of surprised by, how straightforward, very plain, and I read most of what I read in here. I didn't get into the Gospels or into James. I just read basically all the Pauline epistles and what he wrote about them. So I highly recommend this. So those are my books of 2019 that I found interesting. We'll go through them again. Romans 1 through 8 in the Reformation Commentary series. William H. Gass Reader. Another Roadside Attraction. Notebooks 1936-1947 by Victor Serge. Memoirs of a Revolutionary by Victor Serge. The Accursed, a novel by Joyce Carol Oates. Duck's Newbury Port by Lucy Ellman. Going Native by Stephen Wright. Pleasures of the Imagination, English Culture, 18th Century by John Brewer. The Merry Men by Carolyn Chute. Abel and Cain, a novel by Gregor van Rieser, translated out of German. Ninth Street Women by Mary Gabriel. The Fire Within, St. Teresa of Avila, St. John of the Cross, and the Gospel and Prayer by Thomas de Bray. The Invented Part by Rodrigo Fresan, translated from the Spanish by Will Vanderhyden. And lastly, Clarice Lispector's Complete Stories. So those are the ones I really enjoyed that stand out on the list. As I said, if you want to know the complete list of what I read or was reading in my reading life, you can go to my online diary, Crooked Fingers, and you can see not only what I read this year, 2019, but all the way back into the year 2001. I started Crooked Fingers, my online diary, back in the March of 2001. And I write every single day, and I keep track of what I read, not only online, but also in my paper diaries. I don't have like a separate notebook where I write down what I read. I don't do that. At the end of the year, I do make lists like this. I didn't do it every single year in Live Journal. I don't know when I started doing that. But anyway, so that's what I found to be interesting reading. I read a lot of books, and I read all the time, but these are the ones that stood out when I went through my list. So I hope you enjoyed this little video into my reading life, into my intellectual life, my spiritual life, things that I enjoy reading as I drift in the dead zone, and as I live out my life here in the hermit hut, and as I seek to wait for the end of this world. And so yeah, so I hope you're having a good week. I don't know when I'll make another video. My wife works tonight and then she's off. But I might do a video of showing the thrift store books I got today, or what I've been reading, or somebody wanted a video about my pre-order books on Amazon. I do have a list of books I have pre-ordered in Amazon, and someone said to do a video like that. I'm always ordering books. Now, I know that's coming to an end because, as I said, my wife is retiring in June of 2020, and we're going on a fixed budget. And we're going to have to live on a certain amount of money. So I think my book buying days are coming to a close. But I think what I'm going to do when my wife is retired, I'm just going to buy books from the Book Nook, the library used bookstore, and just buy books that I think are really worth adding to our library, not things that just interest me. And I'll probably get more books out of the library, or I think I'll just read what I have. I have like 13,000 books. I have enough books in our library to read until I'm 6 feet under. But I know, like today, you know, books are very cheap around here. I mean, like I said, books around here are like 60 cents, 50 cents for a paperback, $1 for a hardback. That's nothing. Now, if I was to go to a thrift store, I mean, like to a used bookstore, you might spend like $6, $4, $5 on a used book, but I rarely do that. I rarely buy any new book. The only new books I buy are like a William Voldman new book, or some history book that I know I can't find used. But anyway, I'm rambling. Once again, I hope you had a good weekend. I hope you have a good new week. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the new subscribers. Do pray you're all doing well. And until next time, bye.